y'all? Welcome to another edition of the Starchildjr Stuffs and Thangs podcast, where we talk about all types of stuffs and things. And this week, we're going to stay on this Ladies of P-Funk theme. I have gracing me today the lovely Lynn Mabry. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining me.
Glad
How's
to
it?
be here, baby.
All right. How's it going out there? You staying safe?
I am. I am right now. I'm in the Bay Area. So I'm taking care of my mom, who's been ill for a while. So, but it's beautiful here.
Okay.
Of course, the
Y-
dang fires, but
Yeah,
other
man.
than that, it's all good. It's all
Yeah. All chaos everywhere, man. But that's all right. We'll get through. We're resilient.
yes. You
Yes,
better
indeed.
better know it.
All right. So let's start this interview off like this. You mentioned the Bay Area. So you're from the Bay Area, yes?
Yes, I'm from Berkeley, born in Vallejo, California.
Vallejo.
Vallejo,
Oh,
but
Vallejo.
yeah. Vallejo, but yeah, uh, Bay Area, Berkeley is where I grew up. My formative years was
Okay.
definitely Berkeley, California. That's my heart.
Okay. So Berkeley, California, the Bay Area where Sly Stone happens to be from. Uh and
Yes.
and and you all the many people that you sang with, we're going to start there. Uh
Okay.
I'd like to ask you about how did that come about and how was that for you?
Oh wow. Okay. So how it came about was um, I was 16 years old.
Okay.
And I had been singing with actually Sheila E.'s uncle, who's now passed, of course, Coke Escobedo.
Okay.
And my mom and Sly were very close. We're family, for those of your listeners who don't know. We're cousins. And my
Cousins.
mom and Sly used to be really close. I mean, they were like brothers that they talked all the time.
Okay.
So anyway, she must have mentioned that I was singing to him on a conversation. So he asked her one day, would I be interested in doing some recording with him, because he wanted to get more family involved.
Mhm.
And she asked me, she was like, well, I'm sure she is, but she asked me, and I'm like, sure. So I started doing some session work with him, and it was for the album Heard You Miss Me, Well, I'm Back, the solo album that he did.
Mhm.
And so did that. And then I was still singing with Coke. And how it came about was I was singing with Coke on the weekends, and then there were also sessions on the weekends. So this particular, I think it was a Saturday, I was running late, and I didn't realize what time it was. So I called Coke's manager to let him know that I was running a little late, but I would, more than likely I would be there like right when it was time to start, but I
Mhm.
was going to miss the sound check and everything. And he was not happy about that. And so Sly heard me on the phone talking and trying to plead. And, so he came in the room. It was an old office area. He came in and he just said, who you talking to? And I said, well, I'm talking to Coke's man. I'm just trying to explain. He said, give me the phone. And I was just kind of taken back. I was like, okay. I said, such and such, he wants to talk to you. So he gets on the phone, and Sly just gives him the business and tells him he cannot be telling me what to do, and I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. So basically, the manager said, well, you just tell her if she doesn't get here on time, she's fired.
Uh,
So he said, fire her then. And I'm like, no! I think I got fired that night. I don't remember if I made, oh no, I didn't. I didn't make it. So that's how I got the gig with him.
okay.
And so we finished the recording, and then he said we have some tour dates to do and a couple TV shows. I was like, cool. So we did that. I think we did Don Kirshner's rock concert. I believe we did Tony Orlando and Dawn. This is old school, okay?
I remember. I know what you're talking about.
Right?
I've seen these clips. Yes.
And then he gets a call to open up for P-Funk. So it was going to be P-Funk, Bootsy, and Sly. And so I had only heard of Parliament-Funkadelic through my best friend at the time, Mark Elaine's her sister, she had a America Eats Its Young album, and she
Okay.
used to play it. And I would listen to it, but it wasn't something that I would go, ooh, it was very new, very, to me, it was sort of like funky acid rock kind of a thing. So it was very new because I was just, actually being raised in church. I didn't hear as much radio stuff. I did by that time, but not as much. And so it was a new type of music. So
Okay.
I remembered the name Parliament-Funkadelic, but that was it. And so when he mentioned that, I was like, man, I know the name. I remember the album. So we go and we do this tour, and it was crazy. Now I want to backtrack a little bit because
Okay.
you asked me how was it with
Yeah,
Slide,
take your time. Tell your
right?
story. Tell
So
your story. This is what I
right.
need.
So it was interesting because my relationship with him was different than everybody else because we were family.
Okay.
So I felt, in one way, I felt a sense of kinship and responsibility, and I wanted to look after him because he was my cousin. It wasn't even
Understandable.
as much of, oh my God, I'm going out on tour and I'm going to see, the world. And it was like, yeah, that's great. And I was going to be making a little money and all that was great. But,
Mhm.
he was my cousin first. So we were doing some shows. This is before P-Funk. We were doing some shows, and he was unfortunately, was going through his drug thing at the time. Even though he was cleaning himself up, which was really great, but there were still some struggles and some battles. And so, of course, I took it upon myself, because I've always been like a nurturer, even when I was a little kid. And so I was just like, I got to make sure that, he doesn't do anything before a show. I got to make sure that his hair is cool. Like, this person that I was singing with was my partner from The Brides, Don Silva. That's how we got with P-Funk. But anyway, backtrack to that. So she and I did a lot of policing together with him.
Okay.
We would go to his suite and make sure he was dressed. And so we were, I was so focused on him being healthy and responsible and accountable that the majority of my time with him was more of that family, take care of him type thing.
Right. Understandable.
I did enjoy the time, but it was kind of sidetracked by his struggle.
Okay.
And then one day we did a big festival, big one. And it was Eddie, no. Yes, I think Eddie Kendricks was on that one. But it was, what's that? Teddy Pendergrass and the
Okay.
Blue Notes.
Harold Melvin
Shaka
and
Khan, yeah, it was Rufus and Shaka Khan. It was Sly. It was, I think Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Yeah, Harold and Teddy. Yeah. It was it was a big festival. And so he had this suite that was right, I guess there was a hotel, wherever this was, there was a hotel that was right off of the field and area where we were performing. So he invited a bunch of the guys from the, groups that were performing up to his suite. And so, of course, I was there. I believe Don was there, but I know I was there, of course. And I was sort of being like a host, making sure they had water, making sure, blah, blah, blah. So one time we were just kind of they were sitting around talking, and I was sort of sitting on the side, and all of a sudden Sly pulls out something he wasn't supposed to be smoking. And they were all laughing, talking, and maybe having a cocktail or two, whatever. And then all of a sudden he went to light it up, and instinctively I go, Phil, do you really want to do that right now? Because we had a gig that night. Like, we had to go. You want to do it? He said, girl, please, mind your business, kind of a thing. And I was just feeling like, because I know how that would distract him, because we had a couple of shows that would be canceled.
Right.
Because he couldn't perform. He couldn't make it.
Right.
And I just didn't want that to happen, So I was like kind of begging him, like, can you not just maybe you might just. And I thought I was being discreet, and he laughed it off and then continued to do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got back, after we did the show, whatever, we got back home, and I remember hearing from somebody that he was really upset with me for doing that and felt that I needed a break from him, from the group. And I was just like, oh shoot, So I didn't hear from them for a while. Dawn and I kept talking, whatever, and she was kind of telling me what was going on. And then the tour came up, and thankfully, they asked me if I wanted to do it. So I said, absolutely, I'd do it. And so I thought we were done and that was over. So we did the tour. It was a 3-week tour.
Uh-huh.
Was exposed to P-Funk for the first time. And yeah, I was blown away because it was some serious P-Funk stuff. And mind you, now Dawn and I, we were very, very conservative in the way of the music industry.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? It's like, so.
And here comes this dude naked under a sheet.
All of that. All of that. So it was fun. And then I became kind of intrigued because I was like, this is crazy and this is great. And then I remember, really like paying attention to all the band members and their uniqueness. And of course your dad and then Glenn and the voices and the musicianship. And it was like something that, Sly was funky. Come on now. But, this was a slightly different departure from it. It was just had that twist. And I was really intrigued. So
I dig it.
Yeah, so
had an edge.
It was so much, yeah. So we found our, of course, because we were doing the tour together. George would ask everybody to come on stage at the end of the night and all do this little finale thing. So every night we would come on and dance, and then I started enjoying it. It was kind of fun, And then tour was over. We came back home. I was actually supposed to be going to college, but that was sort of right when it was going to happen. And so I told my mom, I said, just let me have a year off and then I'll save my money and then I'll go. And she was like, cool. So we get home, everything's fine. And then we get a call. I don't even know who contacted us, but somehow we found out that P-Funk was going to be in Oakland. And so they said, if you want to come, be our guest. We're like, heck yeah, we'll be there. I think it was actually George. Us. Anyway, so Dawn and I went. Now, the other girl we were singing with at the time, she had a kind of a really bad accident and wasn't able to sing. So it was just the two of us by that point. But anyway, we went to the show, did like we always do. End of the show, they called us, told us to come on. So here's Dawn and I in our little jeans and our t-shirts. And we're like, yeah, we were having so much fun. After the show, hung out with the guys, hung out with everybody, partied, did the whole thing. Next morning, we both received a telegram.
A telegram.
Come on now. Dating myself, got a telegram. And
that's the old school text, y'all.
That's old school texting, but by mail.
Email.
It's by mail. It was a letter. Yeah. And it said, your services are no longer needed. Oh. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, no.
So, of course, I called Dawn. Dawn gets hers. We're like freaking out. So, of course, I called George. And so George was like, you guys come over to the hotel and hang out. So we came over to the hotel, brought the telegram, told him what happened. He's looking at it. He says, is he for real? And I said, evidently. He said, well, if he is firing you today, I will hire you today.
Nice.
And literally the same day we got fired. We got hired.
Hired with P-Funk.
So that is sort of like, that was my transition from Sly to George. But it was, again, it was in the beginning, it was nice. It was fun. I enjoyed, performing with my cousin, and I was honored to do it. I felt like I had a little responsibility, to look after him and all that stuff. But, it was difficult at times.
Yeah, we know the struggle is real.
Yeah, the struggle is real. So it was just, again, that was the segue, and that was my time to transition just to another situation.
What I like to say is the universe had another plan for you is all. That's how that works.
Sure. Absolutely. I believe that with everything I've done.
Yes,
That's all
indeed.
part of the master plan.
All right, so George has now beamed you and Dawn up onto the
Oh
mothership.
my God.
He's
And he,
beamed you. He's set down the tractor beam, and now he's sucked you guys up onto the mothership.
there we were.
And now you guys are Parliament-Funkadelic official. And
Yeah.
even deeper than that, you guys are now the brides of Funkenstein. You
Well,
guys are
not right
doing your
away though.
own thing.
That came
Okay.
late. Yeah,
Okay.
that didn't start right away.
Okay. So
Um,
what was your first tour then? What was your first gig?
well, the first thing we did was that live, that Parliament Live,
Okay.
where that
P-Funk
album.
Live?
And matter of fact, it's funny too. I mean, I don't think we got credit, but we were actually good, where our voices are on there at the end. But um, uh, what was the name of that first tour? Okay, let me tell you something. Sister Girl got a little senility up in here.
Okay.
Like sometimes I have to go, shoot, what was the name of that?
It's
And I'm
all good.
scrolling through trying to figure out what it
So
was. It was, how about this? It was 1976.
you talking about the P-Funk Earth tour?
Yeah,
Okay.
1976.
Okay.
That was the first year that we actually started, because that was our last year with Sly.
Okay. What
So
about
yeah,
what was your first studio record when you guys started recording and everything?
like, listen, that was another great story. So he said, yeah, I got some sessions, and if you guys are up for it, we're like, heck yeah. So because we lived here, we could just drive ourselves up, which we did often. We just drove up to LA. He put us up at a hotel, and the first session we ever did was the Horny Horns,
Okay.
the
Dope.
the Between Two Sheets.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the first record, and how much fun. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was just, again, new departure, new music. Everybody was really cool. Debbie and Jeanette weren't quite as receptive at the beginning. Of course,
Okay.
there was a lot of, female animosity, which Dawn and I were totally oblivious of in the beginning, as far as how deep that existed.
Mm-hmm.
But it made sense once we were there a little bit longer, got to know them a little bit more. It was like, well, no wonder, you sitting up here fighting for your own spot, and then here come two more.
Right on.
So, yeah, Between Two Sheets. And then what was interesting though, and how George was kind of brilliant in how he would do this, he would just say, we're just going to do a session, just come on and sing. And we wouldn't know what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
We would just show up, sing, give us our little money, and get on out. And then later we would find out. So I remember we did Eddie Hazel's, Games, Dames, and Guitar
Yeah,
Things.
that's you and Dawn all over that.
No,
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, it's not hard to distinguish when you two are singing. It's not at all hard.
thank you.
Not at all.
Yeah. So we just started just doing a bunch of projects. And then before you know it, oh, this comes out, and that comes out, and this comes out. So it wasn't like when you, like today, when you'll do like an album project and you're doing this one
Mm-hmm.
record.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't it. George would just rack them up, and we would come in, and there would be like jam sessions. And by the time we got in there, they had already laid down all the music, and then all the singing started. So you never really knew what you were going to do, but there were quite a few fun sessions.
I could imagine, man.
Yeah,
George is very loose in the studio, very
oh,
loose and yeah, but not to take away from professionality at all, because it's
sure,
all
sure,
professional and business gets handled. But
right.
that's why the P-Funk experience is what it is, because we know how to do it and not be so uptight about it. We have a good time doing it.
Absolutely. And I always said that, to me, one of George's greatest gifts was to have the ability to bring certain musicians and singers together for
Yes,
projects
indeed. That's
that
a
would just
talent.
be like mind blowing.
I had him on here and I told him that. I was like, brother,
Did
that's a
you?
talent that you have. Yeah, I said, that's a talent that you have, brother. That is
It's
a
real.
talent. And
It's real.
then so speaking to you say you guys would just come in and just record, you don't know what was on what. And I kind of gathered that from him, that I'm not really sure that he really even knew what things were going to go on at the moment.
I
I
don't think
think he just kind of determined as it was time,
it's true.
But then
It's
when you're
true.
trying to satisfy all those record deals, he had record deals all over the place. So
Right.
I can imagine, it was a hell of a factory. And then to be able to be on tour throughout all of that,
All of it.
like people always talk about how much fun this band is, but like I said, don't y'all ever try to take away from the work that this band has put in. And
So
just
much.
case in point is right there, to be able to put out records consecutively and stay on tour at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of work right
Yeah,
there,
we were
buddy.
tired.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We were tired, but we were young enough that you just kind of is what it was and you moved on. But it's interesting that you would say, because it kind of took me back to how the Brides came about. He, after we had done all this work and we were doing some live gigs and stuff together, and one day he just talked to Dawn and I at the time, and he was just saying, I'm gonna split you guys up and do 2 girl groups,
Uh-huh.
and it's gonna be you and Dawn, and it'll be the other girls. And at the time it was Malia was a part of it, and Jeanette and Debbie.
Uh-huh.
And so he told us the name. He had come up with the name, but he didn't know who was going to be who. And it was the Brides and Parliament, Brides of Funkadelic, of course, Parliament. And so even though I loved the name, but I'm going to be honest with you, when we started recording, still not knowing what was going to be what,
Uh-huh.
and he was playing, sharing some of the music, I wanted to be the Parliament stuff. To me was so funky, and we were so la la la. We were like the funky la la, And so, but it was still cool. But it was like, it just seemed like there was this grit now that I had been exposed to, that I was just like, oh, I want some more of that.
Uh-huh.
So, unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize, of course, that all the girls wanted to be Brides of Funkenstein, because just the sound of it, I guess, was better.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Funkenstein, he was doing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when he split us up and said who was going to be doing what, it was like cool, because again, regardless, we were still a part of this P-Funk family.
Right.
And so we started recording, knowing that now we are the Brides, and we started, finishing up the record and everything. And it was still this weird rivalry that was going on. Now, that's kind of, for me, that was new, because I always thought, like, when you're working and you have a group of people working together on a project, you're all family. It's just what it is, no matter, it's just like me being mad at the guitar player. I mean, why am I going to do that? That's stupid,
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of, we had gotten exposed to how difficult that was, but we were still so excited to be being discovered and being sort of molded into this new girl group. And so he told us, he said, I want you guys, and this is no disrespect to the girls, he says, I want y'all to be the classy ones. Because mind you, when we were singing with Sly, we had gowns, long black gowns, rhinestones, flowers, and, we were all of that. And then the girls came out in their, leotards and boots, and they were like, So when he said, we want you guys to be the classy ones, it was like, okay, but it was just like, wonk wonk, you know what I mean? but in seeing that process happen,
Mm-hmm.
it was wonderful for us to be able to be a part of the P-Funk movement and bring something kind of different. So we kind of flipped it and said, okay, this is going to be a little different. And another great thing about George was that he allowed us to be as creative as we wanted to be in the studio. Now, he was very good at saying, no, y'all sing that, or y'all sing that, or, you da-da-da-da. But if we thought of something, felt something, we just did it. And if he liked it, boom, it just kept it. So we go through and finish the record. And when it was done, after the record was done, we get our contract. And so we were really excited, not having any contractual experience whatsoever, wasn't paying too much attention. but we found this attorney in LA. Somebody had recommended him to us because he was the attorney for the Runaways at the time, the other girl group. So we thought, okay, this will be great. So we went to go see him, and he said, it's okay. I mean, it's not great, but if you got, I mean, he wasn't militant to say, oh no, you guys shouldn't do this or you should. He just said, hey, it's sort of typical. If you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. So we were like, okay. So we got our little advance, and it was small, but it was an advance. And we signed it, and next thing we know, like, you're at the Atlantic Records, and you're gonna start doing promo dates and press junkets. And we were like, huh? And I remember when I first realized that we had something was after Disco to Go, which was our single, was released, and Atlantic Records was giving us a quote unquote reception because we were the brides. So they gave us a reception in LA. And a limo picked us up. When we stepped out of the limo, there was a lot of press there, and the cameras, the paparazzi, just the flickering of the lights. And I got a chill, honestly, right now, just kind of remembering how that felt at the time. I was like, what?
They want to see me.
You know what I mean? Like, that was for us. Like, this is for us, because we had never had that kind of personal exposure or personal adoration because of something that she and I had done.
Right.
We were just a part of the band. Right. Always, and that was fine. I was totally happy. But this was like the first time that I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, we're actually an item as far as the music industry is concerned. And they like us. And it was deep. And so we went in, and there were a bunch of people there. I remember Aretha Franklin was there. And we just, went in and introducing us to people. And then we did the whole photo op thing. They had a cake. We did the cutting of the cake. It was crazy. And even though, like, that was the beginning of it starting to happen, it still never really made me feel like I was a star. Okay. I just felt like I was being recognized. Okay. But you know what I mean? Yeah. But it was never like, ooh, stand back.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. And but it was pretty amazing that transition. Okay. But what was smart of George again was that even though we were still the brides, we still sang with George. Right. So we were still backing up him and being a part of the whole band. But Parlette was Parlette, brides were brides, and we all came together. And so that kept us kind of grounded a little bit, but it also encouraged that on stage crap with the girl. I mean,
it's all love, y'all.
I know.
It's all love,
But it's a real thing. Like, people, like you said, people don't really know what goes on all the time.
Right.
They just get the result. The music is dope, and everybody
they just see what we present to them, which is smiling and happy times. So. Right.
But it was fun. I mean, for the most part, I have to say, it was definitely a life-changing, or not even changing, because I don't think I've changed, but I think that it enhanced something. Okay. What I mean?
Altering.
Just slightly, not to take away from, because thank God, I think I believe, and I know that I maintained that integrity that I've always was raised with. And so I kept myself just a little separated, just enough to make sure I wasn't, and I partied too. I mean, of course, I was young, so I was wanting to, party and discover new things. And, of course, but again, I just kind of always felt like I kept that kind of mindset that this wasn't necessarily my entire life and my entire world. Okay. But musically, it was It
It
was amazing.
was a wonderful
It was
time, huh?
amazing. It was
That's
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
good. I tell you, man, looking at those clips, man, it you know, that I always say, man, I was born in the wrong damn era.
No. Well, I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I think you and your dad, y'all are pretty. Y'all got this synergy that you
Well,
cannot.
I've been keyed into him ever since. You know, he
Of
raised
course.
me out there. You know, I appreciate him and my mother, man, raising me that way. You know, because it gave me some perspective, and you know, I tried to deny this destiny for as long as I could. You know,
Oh,
but
see,
but but deep down, you know, this is what I've always wanted to do. So I paid attention, no
and you
matter
do
how
it so
hard headed I
well.
was. I paid a lot of attention.
I know, but you do it so well. That's why. I mean, I know it's in you because I've seen you and I've heard you, and it's just in you. It's undeniable
I appreciate
in
that.
you. It's all good. It's just almost like just like he just passed the torch, and you just like got
I
it.
I appreciate it, man. Well,
For
I
real,
appreciate you guys for the lessons, man. All the
for real.
lessons come from you guys. I paid attention. I'm telling
Oh,
you, y'all inspired the world,
oh, thank you.
me included. I was there. I was there, but I was a fan. So,
I met you when you were 3 weeks old.
oh yeah, I'm sure. I don't deny it. I do not deny it at all.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Keep telling folks, man, shit, I was born on the mothership. I learned how to
Pretty
walk
much.
on the mothership.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Uh-huh.
much.
That's what's up. Okay, so let me ask you this. We didn't cover the P-Funk. You
Okay.
took your break for a little while, and then you resurfaced doing some work with the Talking Heads.
Yes. Well, let me help you with that little bit of transition.
I appreciate it. Correct
So,
me. Get
so
me right.
after about 4 years, and one full, bride's year, because that was 19. I guess we finished our record in 77, but the record was released in 78.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I had a lot of craziness going on, in my spirit and everything. And I was starting to feel a little torn, and I was feeling this little tug of war.
Okay.
And by this time, Junie had come in, and he had, brought his talent and stuff, but he started kind of eyeing me. And at the time, I was really, my self-esteem wasn't all that great at the time, even though like I said, we were doing all this great stuff. But I think I just kind of started to get tired a little bit, and I started to miss some normalcy and sort of, being at home and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
um, Judy and I were, we started seeing each other, and one day something had happened, and I don't know, I cannot remember for the life of me what this was, but we did this one show. And after the show, I was just exhausted, and we were talking, and I just started crying. So we're back at the hotel, and he says, "What is going on?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I'm just tired. I just kind of feel like it's not as fun as it was anymore." Now, mind you, we only had, I believe, 2 weeks left in this tour that we had been on for months.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm just tired. And he says, "Well, then just quit then, or just stop, and I was like, "Huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, like, you go as long as you want to go. And when you're done, you're done." And I'm like, hold on a second. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, it didn't make sense to me, because I'm thinking, well, you're not supposed to. And he literally, he just said, "Look," he said, "you are the captain of your ship. And if you're done, turn the ship around, go back to dock, and just get off," pretty much. And I was just like, "Really?" And I said, "But what about," he says, "Look," he said, "and if you want, I'll go with you. If you're done, I'll be done too." And I'm like, "Really?"
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I made that decision, not a great one, but I made the decision. And the next show, we didn't show up. Now, mind you, the brides are opening up for P-Funk. I didn't show up. And Junie is now an integral part. He didn't show up. So Dawn tells me later that she is frantic. She knew something wasn't right. And she was like, "What are we going to do?" She went to George. She was like, "What are we going to do?"
Uh-huh.
And George said, 3 y'all, just, because we had 2 backup singers at the time. We had 3, but Babs, she had recently had left, so we only had 2 backup singers at the time, Sheila and Jeanette Magruder. And then so the 3 of, the 2 of them came up, and they knew the show very well, and they just made it work. And I was just like, of course they did. You know what I mean? But I really regret it. And after a while, I regretted how I left. That was really crazy. But that transition, I still kept in contact with Bernie, because Bernie was one of my closest, dearest buds from there. I kept in touch a little bit with, I think your dad talked to me a couple times. Yeah, because I remember one time he came to LA and he stayed with me. Bootsy was real cool. We kept in contact. So even though I left, I still had this kind of little connection. So one day, I was home and I get a call from Bernie. And Bernie says, "Hey, babe," he says, "I'm working with this group called Talking Heads. And they have a girl now, but they're actually looking to make it two girls." And they said, and I told them about you, and they were like, okay, they were going to do some, auditions or whatever. But are you willing to come to New York? And I'm like, sure. So I go to New York and I show up, I sing whatever they wanted me to sing. I don't remember if I got a tape. I don't know what happened, but I ended up singing. I remember David Byrne looking at me, and he just kind of gave me like, cool, And then I just sort of let it go. And then probably a few days later, I get a call and they said, they want you. You ready? And I'm like, heck yeah. I was like, I think I'm going back out on the road. Right? So we go and I joined the band. And one of the first things we did was David Letterman show. And there's actually a YouTube video of this first appearance, the first TV show that I did with them.
Okay.
It's in black and white, I believe.
I wish I would have known, because I had Paul Schaefer on here too. I would have asked him about that.
Yeah. And so, I think it was Izumba was the name of the song. Oh God, see? Anyway. Don't be very much, I can't remember the words. But anyway, it's too long ago. But anyway, and that was just so much fun, because now I'm going now with another group, which to me was now a combination of, because, Bernie was in the band, so we had a little funk vibe to it, but then it was this, this avant-garde, sort of out of the box kind of Euro. It was crazy. And I'm like, and I'm digging it, So
very abstract.
Very. And David was just as people saw him. He was quirky. He was, innovative. He heard things, saw things, felt things. And, as far as the music was concerned, that was so out there and so different, but it worked.
It sounded like he was just like the music.
It worked.
Yeah.
It totally worked. So I was with Talking Heads for a couple years, right?
Okay.
2-3 years maybe, and had the best time. We toured the world. We went everywhere. It was just a really, to me, that was more grounded, less of the, sex, drugs, and rock and roll environment that I had just come from. So it was a nice change. And and it was, again, like I said, it was great. We were just doing all these dates. And then one day we find out, oh, we're going to do a show, in LA, and we're going to film it.
I've seen that show. It was dope.
Which was Stop Making Sense,
that
right?
Was dope, yeah.
And so, again, didn't really realize the magnitude of it. And the manager at the time, Gary Kerfers, that name I'll never forget. And he came to us girls and he was like, okay, so we're going to do this film, and, we'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. And I was thinking, now, wait a minute. Now, I'm not crazy. Now, if we're doing a film, it's not like a don't So I'm like, I had to think quick. So my daughter's godfather,
Uh-huh.
no music business experience whatsoever. The only thing is that he knew a lot more people, or not a lot more artists and bands and stuff, and he knew about the Talking Heads than I did. So
Uh-huh.
I was talking to him, and he said, I said, look, I said, why don't you like go in like acting as my manager and have a talk with Gary and tell him that, you know, you want to make sure that, you know, I, you know, maybe get, you know, an advance. Because I remember I got an advance before. And
Uh-huh.
da, 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 da. So I gave him a list of things. He says, no problem, I got you. So he went and had a meeting with Gary, and he came back and he says, okay, everything's done. I'm like, so what, do we have a contract? He said, oh, no. We just did a handshake. We did the gentleman's contract.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Send him on
you know
over,
what?
give him the
So
handshake.
you know what happened. So of
Yeah,
course
they sent him on, gave him the handshake job. Here you go. Yes. Okay.
we're all
Thank
good.
you.
And now, mind you, by this time that we're doing this Stop Making Sense time, Dolette was gone and she was replaced, and we got Edna.
Okay.
So Edna and I were doing it together, and we just got so close, and we were just best of friends at the time. And so she was very concerned too. And she had somebody that, you know, she was talking to, but neither one of us really had that power that we could, you know, get stuff done. But anyway,
Right.
so we did we did the movie without a contract. And, you know, thank God, years later, you know, the union gets involved, because then they're, you know, distributing it, and then they have to know who's doing what. So, you know, we
Mm-hmm.
got a couple of little checks, but nothing like probably what it should have been.
Right.
But I have to tell you that the joy of doing it, and because I made so much more money than I had made with P-Funk, that I felt like, you know what, it'll work itself out. You know, I'm able to take care of myself. I got
Mm-hmm.
my daughter now, I can take care of her. So I was like, it's okay. No big deal.
Yeah, don't fight the universe, man.
No big deal.
Don't fight the universe. All right, so check it out now. So at this point, we've mentioned Sly Stone, P Funk, Talking Heads. We could talk about Bette Midler,
Oh boy.
Rita Coolidge, Fleetwood Mac. We
Yeah.
could go down the line.
Oh
But
my goodness.
the point that I'm ultimately trying to get at is these are some of the hugest names in music. You know, like we could just talk about P Funk alone and how just the P Funk and the Sly Stone
Yeah.
sound
True that.
kind of shaped all of modern music that kind of
Exactly.
followed it. We could talk about that, but all of these huge entities that you have been a part of, you
Yeah.
know, do you ever look back on that and I know you are grounded. You're very grounded. You're very humble. You know what I mean? But tell me that you don't have your moments where you look back on that and say, wow.
Every now, well, this is the thing. You know, now that I am older, a little wiser, um, I realize that, and I've said this before, that I believe that my career was a series of segues that God put in place. Like I was supposed to be here so that I could segue into here, that I could segue into here.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of what I did, it felt, and so weird to say it, but it felt like it just kind of fell into my lap. Like I would not have, you know, met P-Funk unless we would have opened up for him. And then I
Right.
would not have, you know, got with Talking Heads if Bernie had not recommended me from, you know, and then as my career, and that's what would happen. So like I would have someone that I worked with that would recommend me for something else, and then boom. And at the time, again, you know, I am a Christian. I've always believed that, you know, Christ, Lord and Savior, he just sort of directed my path this whole time. And in all of that, I was always grateful. And I was always like, just saying, I'm just going to give it my all, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that really kept me is that after the brides and that whole thing, I
Mm-hmm.
never really felt like being being up in front and being the one and being the star or being the, you know, the featured artist. And that was never a priority. What I always wanted to do was be in contribution. So every time I got with someone, I felt like I was fulfilling my purpose and my destiny of, I can contribute to this group, I can contribute to that artist. And then one day, when you said did I ever get that? I remember somebody had asked me for a resume of past work that I had done. And the first time, and I was like, oh, and so I was handwriting things down of and then it started to hit me. I was like, oh, wow, I did that too. And then it was just like, how blessed am I? And literally, that's how I've always felt. It's like, I've always been so incredibly blessed. And I think that one of the main reasons that God sort of entrusted me with this blessing and this gift was because I didn't abuse it and I didn't take advantage of it. I just stayed in contribution. And when my season was up, I said amen, and then I just moved on. And another thing that I remember when I'm just going to bring up George Michael, because that was a really
I didn't even
that's
get
okay.
to that.
Not to drop the name, but it was that time when I auditioned for him. And I was up against, I had made it all the way from, like, I think they said they saw like 150 women. And I made it to the top 3. And then the third, they kind of, so I don't know what happened, but by the time I got to that callback, it was myself and Nikki Harris. She used to sing for Madonna. Singing full, like, runs and range and, so we're at the audition and I'm standing outside of the studio and I can hear her singing. And I'm like, oh, she got that. There ain't no way. She was phenomenal. To this day, I love Nikki Harris. Phenomenal. So then when she comes out and I'm like, oh my God, I said, you were awesome. You are. I was just like, girl. So I just walked in. Of course, Bernie was there and he was like, hey, and introduced me to everybody. Everybody was really sweet. Excuse me, I take that back. Bernie was not there. It was not Bernie. It was Alan. Anyway, he wasn't there because this is talking. I mean, this is George Michael.
George Michael. Okay.
Rewind. So anyway, I walk into the studio and there's like a little stool and a mic stand and water and everything. And then they said, okay, so what are you going to sing? You're going to sing blah, blah, blah. I said, yes. So I sang. And then I think we did like 2 or 3 songs. And I remember the music director and he, he smiled and looked at me and he was like, well, thank you so much. And everybody was so gracious. And I was like, well, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I did not do what Nikki just did. There's no way. But I said, thank you. So, I was so gracious to be there. Left. I think the next day or 2 days later, I got the call and they said, we'd like you to come back. We think we'd like to go with you. And so I was just like, hold on a minute. So when I get back and we have I meet everyone, we have a rehearsal, but this rehearsal was without George. It was just the band and the music director. And so I went to the music director and I said, excuse me. I said, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, but why me over Nikki? And he said, the real reason, he said, because you can blend. He said, a bunch of women came in and they were lead singers, but they weren't blending. I was like, well, I'll be darned. And that ministered to me because I said, now, that's what God wanted me to do in the first place. It wasn't I don't mean like blending in like I'm not singing, but it was blending in so that I could be a part of the collective,
part of the group. Yeah.
That made it work. And I kept that. So whatever I did after that point, I always made sure that I blended. And that's how I got the Bette Midler gig. Because she told me that I sound as close to her as anybody else did. And I studied how her tone was. And then, I listened to the girls and I, found that sweet spot where the girls were singing. So that, I look back at my career and I could say, yes, I've been really blessed because God gave me the gift of blending. And,
Well,
you
you
know,
you use your gift to the best of your abilities, man. That's what you do. That is so awesome.
yeah,
So, like I said, when it's all said and done, you can be humble about it. I say it for you. The universe puts you in all the right spots
yeah.
to make sure that we got some great music. You
Thank you.
contributed some great
Thank
works.
you.
Great
I really,
works.
yeah, I've been blessed. I really have, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so humbled by it, and it has enhanced my life,
Yeah,
because
okay.
I believe that just like with music, you should be that way with people that you love, with family,
Yes.
with friends. Be in contribution. Yeah, you know what I mean. Just like do unto others as you want somebody to do to you.
Yeah.
And that's how I've lived my life that way, in business and in pleasure.
I dig it. I believe in karma, so
Yeah,
you just be good. Just be good. Don't
be good.
expect it to come back on you. Just be good.
Be good.
And it comes back.
It will.
You
It
know.
does. It really
Put your work in, it comes back. It pays off.
does. It
You
does.
get what you give. So that's how it works. All right, so I'll try to wrap it up real quick because now we're going a little OT, but I still got a
Uh-oh.
couple of things
Sorry.
I want to touch on though. You contributed to 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yes.
What did that mean for you? In case any of you guys have not seen that, you should go check out that documentary. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it by now. It's been out for a while, but in case you haven't, go check out 20 Feet from Stardom, a wonderful documentary that sheds some light on some of the things that
Mhm.
or some of what it is to
Yeah,
actually chase your dreams and have to be a woman going being in this industry
that's
and what
right.
it takes to get on top.
It's very true. It's very
Yeah.
true. Well, I got another call, and someone said, "Oh, we're interviewing a lot of background singers, and your name came up." And actually, I found out later that Lisa Fisher is the one who gave production my name.
Okay. Who was also part of the documentary.
Well, yeah, she was one of the main uh, featured artists, but
Mm-hmm. Well,
and so
right.
and it was just literally, it was just an interview. I showed up for the interview, and
Mm-hmm.
it was this place in LA, this old kind of warehouse looking place, and they had a little corner, and they had, some lights in a chair, and I just sat there, and they just asked me a bunch of questions about Talking Heads and about,
Mm-hmm.
different people that I'd worked with and what was it like, and of course P-Funk too, everything, and some Japanese artists that I had worked. They really had, they
Right.
found my list. So we went through, it was probably about a good 3 hours that we spoke.
Okay.
And it was just an interview. And that's
Okay.
what I thought it was. I had no idea what that interview was turning into until about a year or so later.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out that it was going to be a documentary about backup singers. And so I remember going to the screening. First time I had seen it or had known anything about anybody else. The only person that I knew they had interviewed was Lisa.
Uh-huh.
I was in there like I was an audience member with having a major history lesson.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That was amazing.
Okay.
So that experience, I had no idea what I was doing it for, but that was another time that I felt so humbled and so grateful to be able to be a part of that collective, because it was really a part of the collective of how women are dealing with being in the industry, and how
Mm-hmm.
some people wanted to be in front and some were and said no thank you, and some, and it was like, it was such a great project, and I was so grateful to be a part of it. And again, that was another time where I was like, wow, they considered me enough to be a part of something of that magnitude. And I was so humbled, and I was so thankful and so grateful. And then it won an Oscar, and I was like,
Uh-huh. You see what happens when you go with the flow? That's the lesson in today's interview, y'all. If you go with the flow, good things come. Don't
it
fight the
does.
flow.
It does. It really does.
Don't fight the flow. Go
And
with it.
and I would say this too, is not only not to fight the flow, but don't try and create the flow, as far as don't try and make it happen where you feel like if you don't get what you want, you're over. Like when I say don't make it happen, I meant be your best.
Okay.
Be your best authentic self. But don't try and force feed yourself onto a situation,
Mm-hmm.
because if it's meant for you, it's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
period. And it's like your gift will go before you. And for those who don't believe in gifts, your talent will go before you, and it will just make a way. And I
Indeed.
just love how these women were able to share their path and their destiny, and how it just made so much sense, because, one would say, hey, I thought that I wanted to back up singing, but I really wanted to be out there in front. So I'm thinking I better stop back up singing because I
Mm-hmm.
really want to be in front. And it
It
was
was
like, now,
typecasting me.
yeah, and I was opposite. I was like, I don't need to be in front. I am very happy being back here supporting. And sometimes it was back, sometimes it was on the side, wherever. But yeah, it's like, when you have it, universe, God, however everybody feels it, that spirit, that energy, it'll make a way.
It was a wonderful story, man. I really enjoyed it. It was very good and very informative for me as well. So
Right?
yeah, and I appreciate your contributions to
Thank
it,
you.
as well as everything else. So
Thank you. Yeah.
you
It
know,
was a history lesson. That was another thing for people who
it
haven't seen it.
was.
It's a history lesson.
Yes,
Check
it
it out.
was. Yes, it was. I enjoyed it. I really did.
It's a good one.
Um, and now, so we'll conclude by, at the moment, I'm gonna send a shout out to Auntie Sheila. We've had her on this show.
I saw it. Amazing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was so glad that she graced me, man. You guys are wonderful, man, for joining me and
You are loved.
in my podcast for me, man. Y'all make me look so wonderful.
You are loved.
I love you guys more. Too. So, but at the moment, if we ever get back out on the road again, you will be able to catch Lynn with my other auntie Sheila E. At the moment, you want to you want to promote Elevate Hope or anything? What you
Well,
guys
you know
got
what?
going on, man? Tell the
I know it's so, I
folks.
wish we had more time, because I could tell you how all that happened, but
Well, go
yeah,
ahead, go right on ahead.
it's all,
Forget it.
so basically, I don't, I was managing Sheila for many, many years. And during that, we both had a chance to go on a tour in Japan.
Okay.
And while that happened, we were in a Bible study. And our pastor, here back in the States, told us to have Bible study at least, a couple of nights. If you definitely one day a week, but if you do it a couple nights a week, I think we did it 2 nights a week.
Uh-huh.
And so what we did was we took turns on leading the Bible study. So when it was Sheila's turn, Sheila says, I don't have nothing to talk about. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't want to talk about it. I said, talk about your life. I mean, talk about how you got to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Or I said, even better yet, I said, talk about something that was really deep in your life that you feel like you're changing now, like God, because I think that was part of her Bible study was about change.
Okay.
So she goes, well, I don't know where to start. I said, girl, get on your laptop and just start typing. So at the time we were in this suite together. We had this 2-bedroom suite, and I'm in my room and I'm hearing the clink, clink, clink. And then all of a sudden, I think I'm watching TV or something, and I don't hear anything. So I kind of go out to check, and she's like on the floor sobbing. And I'm like, oh my God, what's the matter? She's like, I can't stand it. So she had relived some abuse that she had gone through. So I'm like, look, you're on the right path. You need to keep doing this. God's here for you. Don't you worry. He gonna hook you up. You just keep typing and you keep talking about it. By the time we got home, we were talking about what a wonderful, revelation that was, that through that Bible study that God just sort of revealed to us that, both of us had been, abused sexually, and that thank God for the music. If it were not for the music, we probably would have been basket cases.
I dig it.
So then just in conversation, we're like, man, like we need to be able to talk to other, young women and young kids, because it's both happened to us when we were so young, and let them know that things are all right. And the whole conversation sort of manifested into putting together a nonprofit.
Okay.
And so we talked about it, talked to our, accountant. He turned us on to an attorney. We just kind of did it the right way. Started out being Little Angel Bunny Foundation. It was too hard for people to remember. They were mixing it up with Oprah's Bunny Network or Angel Network, and it was
Too many
crazy.
words for people.
So we decided we were going to change it. It was a year of having Little Angel Bunny. We said we got to change it. Plus, it sounded like a cartoon. So I did come up with Elevate Hope. One day we were in our office and I was just kind of writing down names and I was like, what do you think about Elevate Hope? And it was like, yeah. So we did a DBA for Elevate, did it with Elevate Hope. And so basically what we're, the main mission that we had was to donate instruments to foster care facilities or orphanages or, you know, private group homes that had people that were dealing with abuse and psychological issues and stuff that from it. And so we just started doing that on a small scale. And then, you know, one thing led to another. And then we're like, oh God, we have to have a fundraiser. Then we had a big fundraiser, raised money. We're able to like put so much money into these different schools and give them more instruments. And we like, there was a choir in one orphanage and we bought them instruments, we bought them robes, you know, we just like, you know, just anything that we could do to promote music with these kids. And, you know, fast forward, you know, we've done a lot, but again, another segue, how the universe works. We had done an event and we met up with the owner, Yoshi, in Oakland, and her business partner at the time, Jason Hoffman. And we were just kind of talking. They were like, you know what? We're just so like proud of what you guys are doing. And we are doing something similar here in Oakland. But what we're doing is we are putting music into the public spectrum, excuse me. We are putting it into the public spectrum. And so we're like, oh, wow. And so we had just come off of working with this facility in LA called Vista Del Mar. And we had done a couple of fundraisers for them. And we had, you know, we were trying to build them a new music studio, but the president at the time didn't want, you know, us to have that much input at the time, longer story short. So we collaborated with 51 Oakland. And we just decided, you know what, we've done a lot in LA area. Now let's go back home to the Bay Area where we're both from and do some things for the kids and students in the Bay Area. So we merged. So now we went from Elevate Hope, now it's Elevate Oakland. And basically, you know, we had been working, we had 3 schools that we have artists in residence, which are just artists who are teachers. And they're going in and they're helping these kids and mentoring with the kids. And so we were doing that for a few years. And then the pandemic hit. And shut it all down. But that's really, I mean, it's all about elevating these kids and these students that are really going through hard times. And we focused on, you know, low income areas. We focused on, you know, schools that, you know, all the arts were taken out because there wasn't any money. And that was our target. So that's what we've been doing. And contrary to, you know, what some people think, you know, we accomplished quite a bit. And we were so proud. And we're so grateful. And those kids are also thankful. So
and that's what really matters right there. It really counts. And you probably saved countless of kids, you know, like people don't understand, you know, all you got to really do, man, is just give these kids something to do, man. Just give them an alternative to just being out in the streets, man. Give them something to do. That's all they need is something to do, man.
And they need hope and they need a purpose. And, you know, God gave us this gift of music and I'm telling you, arts in general.
Yeah, man. I hate that they defunded music programs, man. And that they, you know, it's always the first thing to get snipped, you know, but it's like arts and music. These things are essential to life, man. People don't understand. It's crazy, man. But you guys are doing a wonderful thing, man. And I'm sure those kids do appreciate you. You know, who cares what anybody else thinks?
Thank you.
You know, they are the ones who matter. So wonderful of you and Auntie Sheila, man. And with that said, I'm going to have to conclude this because I have to edit this real quick so I can get it up. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get it done. I get things done. I get things done.
It was my pleasure. It was really a pleasure.
I appreciate you so much. I want you guys to give it up. We can hear you guys applause at home. Give it up for Lynn Mabry.